We have the honor of being joined by Eagles General Manager Howie Roseman. What's up, Big Pimpin?
How we doing?
What's up, Howie?
That's not good. That doesn't seem like that's going away, does it?
No, I was actually going to ask you, had he referred? Of course, Jalix Hunt called you that on the draft night call. Had he called you that before? Has it stuck in the building? Are you Howie Big Pimpin Roseman now from now on?
I mean, I feel like that's how I roll, but I can't tell you that it's kind of caught on. I'm not so sure that he would have called me that until we picked him, until he was
Well, at least he was smart for that. Yeah, he knew that's the way he had to come in. Well, let's start off there, Howie, with your draft. You've obviously seen received rave reviews about what you guys did in the draft. I guess for me, I don't want to be redundant with a lot of the questions you've already answered in the past, but I'll say this. Quinyon Mitchell being there available to you, I don't know if you guys expected it. I certainly didn't expect it at 22, but Cooper DeJean I did expect to be there at 22, and he was certainly on my list of guys I wanted you guys to sort of go after. So the question I would ask there is, we saw the second day how excited you guys were to be able to move up to get Cooper DeJean. I'm not sure if you guys expected Quinyon to be there at 22, but at 22, when that pick happened, Howie, was there any thought that, do you just take the best guy, I guess, that's rated higher on your board there, or a guy you guys who have obviously thought highly of in Cooper DeJean? Is there any thought there to take him at 22 in fear of missing him later, or do you just take the best guy on the board?
Well, I think when you talk about 22, the way that we roll is we always kind of work from the worst-case scenario down so that, we're not surprised by any outcome. And certainly kind of going through our process, we didn't expect Q to be there at 22, but we also understand the draft is unpredictable. How we look at things may not be the same as anyone else, so we were prepared for him to be there if he was there. The way that the draft worked out with the offensive players going, with the 6 quarterbacks going, we kind of got to a point in the first round where we felt really confident we were going to get a guy that we had a first-round grade on at 22, and so we could be a little patient, which isn't really necessarily in our DNA. But certainly when we were talking about good outcomes at 22, Cooper was in mind there because he's a heck of a player. And as we kind of did it and kind of thought about where we were and what we were doing, it was a close call. But that's why we were so aggressive on the second day and trying to make sure that we went back up and got Cooper because of what kind of player and person we think he can bring.
Yeah, you look at that position, Howard. It's been over 2 decades. Hell, I was still playing and on the team when Lido and Sheldon, and even I could throw Mike Lewis in there as the third pick, the second round pick. Those 3 guys were drafted in those top 2 rounds. Just I guess the thought process going into the draft at that position, and how did you guys sort of evaluate that position and realizing that that's something you wanted to address this draft?
Well, I think it really goes back to when we put together our off-season plan and we really try to kind of tag the free agency process with the drag process to the best we can with the information we have when free agency starts. And kind of felt like there was an opportunity in the draft to help our secondary. And we felt like, just based on where we were picking the first few rounds, that there'd be more than one option at that. Didn't necessarily think it would be those 2 guys. Really excited that those 2 guys were the options there, but did think that was kind of a possible outcome. Though at the same time, we didn't want to force anything, and so we understood that there was a chance we walked away from the draft at a position like we're going to every year, and feel like, man, that was something we really felt like we were going to get in free agency or the draft, and it just didn't work out that way. But felt very fortunate that we had 2 highly rated guys available to us. Obviously, had to trade up for the second one. But those guys, bringing those guys to our team and what they can bring, what kind of players they are, the skill set that they provide, and it's also a fit for kind of what we were looking for here on one of the many areas we were looking to improve.
I'm glad you brought up fit there, Howie. And we're on with the Eagles president, vice president, GM of the team, Howie Roseman. Not many questions about Q Mitchell and where he's going to play and how he's sort of going to fit in, but I think Eagles fans, they're excited about Cooper DeJean, and they realize a good football player when they see one. But the one question that we get, or I get myself, is where do you see him sort of playing at? Inside, outside? He played mostly outside corner at Iowa. So I would just ask you, when you guys sort of project him moving forward, do you sort of see him as a outside corner, or is he one of these athletes that you feel like you can move around and use him in different areas? How do you see sort of seeing him playing or fitting in early in his career?
Yeah, we probably see it a little bit differently in that, like, everything he does well. And so from our perspective, having a guy who we think could be a good outside corner, could play nickel, we've never seen him play safety, so that would be a little bit of a projection there. But we know wherever we're going to put him, he's going to play good football. He's just a natural player. He's got natural eyes for the ball. Feel like if he would have had the full season and the full process, probably would have been even more highly regarded because of what kind of elite athlete he is. All you got to go back is kind of what he did in high school and what kind of athlete he is. And you see he's just a natural player. And so, for us, we have plenty of time to sort that out. The guys just got on the field in this phase of the off-season program, and obviously we had a rookie camp here, and I think that all works itself out. And the ability to be versatile, a lot of times versatility people can view as a negative, like you're not really good at one thing, but certainly in this case we view that as a positive for Cooper and just kind of see how the competition plays itself out. We got a lot of numbers there. We got a lot of guys that we're excited to see and work through in our defensive backfield, and it gives you the opportunity to just play the best guys.
Howie, you got pretty rave reviews everywhere for the draft that you guys had. How important is positive public feedback to you for the draft that you had?
0. Like, maybe less than 0. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where we draft them. It matters how they play. It doesn't matter any feedback that you get for the off season. The season is what matters. And I think at the end of the day, we only have our goal is to win, to make our fans proud, make our organization proud, and that's the publicity that matters. Putting together a winning team that gives us a chance to have another parade in Philly. All the rest of the stuff, it's just off-season stuff. That doesn't matter once the ball snaps.
How much, obviously you have a big staff of people who are scouting, who are, running numbers, not running numbers, you know what I mean, bad choice of words. But yeah, obviously you're the one who has to go and make the pick. How much of the final pick is what your people are telling you versus what you see and what you feel?
Well, I think my job is to gather information, to collect information from our coaches, from our scouts, from our analytics group, and then utilize my experience to make good decisions, and obviously I have opinions as well based on my experiences, but the key is the people on and off the field that we have, and that includes the staff, and I think we have a tremendous staff and tremendous insight, and we have a lot of good discussions, a lot of good debates. From my perspective, I try to just be a listener for most of the process because I understand that if I weigh in and give my opinion, it has the ability to affect some sort of outcome or some sort of the process. And so, I used to think when I was a young guy, experience wasn't that important. And now being around it, I realize how important that is, to kind of learn from the mistakes I've made, which have been plenty, and hopefully, become better and better as I go forward here.
You must have had some situations where you felt strongly one way and perhaps your staff felt strongly a different way. How do you resolve that? Obviously, you're all very passionate and all very informed, but if there is a difference of opinion like that, how do you resolve that?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's my responsibility. My name is going to be along with Coach Sirianni and Jeffrey. When you look up, wherever you look up records, that record's on me. And so at the end of the day, I got to do what I think is right. And as long as it's along the lines of kind of the vision of how to build a team, which we're very clear about with our staff, this is how we want it to look without taking particular players into there. So there are certainly situations where that's occurred. I got to kind of, the instincts are a big part of what anyone does. It's a big part of what you guys do. It's a big part of any job. And so I got to rely on those. Again, there's no insurance for that. That doesn't mean I haven't been wrong. But I think that we have a lot of like-minded people in terms of, as we hire, we try to have people who have a similar vision of how the team should be built. That doesn't mean there isn't different perspectives that go along with that, but I think it would be really different, probably no different than raising kids or raising a family. If you have a partner in that and you feel really different about how to do that, it's going to be hard to raise a family, and I think it's the same way with building a staff and building a team. And I think the overall philosophy of how we want to build the team is lined up with the people that we hire, certainly lined up with ownership and our head coach. And then from there can be some, difference of opinion on each particular person or player that you're trying to bring in.
I'm looking at some of these guys, how you drafted. And
I'm curious what Spike's trying to get to.
No.
Do you have a particular question? I mean, any of the bad picks you can blame on me. Any of the good picks get to my scouts. I'm good, brother.
No,
it's all good as long as we win.
No, to be quite honest with you, I've spent the last before I was a host, I spent the last 20 years managing radio stations, and I've dealt with similar things where it's your ass on the line at the end. I think it wasn't that I was digging at one particular thing. I think it's just the idea of a lot of experts in the room with different opinions, but you have to come up with the final answer, and it's more just about asking you about your thought process of how you get to the final answer when everyone's not on the same page.
Yeah, and so I think for me, it's making sure that I can really go through all the information and include all the different perspectives, and also make it so that I understand what we have now, what we have going forward, because I want us to be good this year. I want us to be great this year. I want us to be great next year. I want us to have a team that's consistently competing for championships. So, I have a different responsibility than some other people. If you take a position coach, they're going to care about their position, understandably, because that's how they're judged. If you're going to take an area scout, they're gonna have a certain affinity for the guys in their area. So I got to go through all that, and then also weigh the analytics, also weigh kind of the contracts that we have on the team, also weigh kind of where the league is leaning to, where the resources are leaning to, and I feel fortunate that I've had enough experience and again made enough mistakes here that continue to try to study it and learn from it and do the best I can for our team, for our city.
Yeah, Howie, you got to give Spike a little bit of a break here. He's still transitioning from being.
What? I didn't do anything wrong.
I'm just saying.
No, good.
He's transitioning.
I didn't know if the right hook was coming. My hands were up to the face. I didn't know, but it's good. It's all good. I was just trying to make sure I answered the question.
No, honestly, I think he's just fascinated from your position because in this business, he was sort of in that position that you're in where he's in charge of other people, and he put this team together. So I that's a little bit of that program director that's still in him as a general manager. He forgets he's down here with us now. He's in the locker room now. You don't have to worry about that stuff anymore, Howie. He's not putting teams together.
And you know what, Ike? I think the biggest gift I've been given is the ability to bring people in, on and off the field, and that's special to be able to pick people you want to work with, that you want to see have success on and off the field, and I think that to me is the biggest luxury of this job, is that you get to pick people that you want to root for on and off the field. So I understand the question. All good.
Yeah, and I was going to get into playing time, but I understand that's more or less Coach Sirianni's sort of territory about the young players and how much of a contribution they could be expected to make this year. I think a lot of people are excited about what you guys did on the defensive side of the ball with these young players. They're excited about seeing them. And, there's one in particular that I'm definitely excited about seeing and happy that you brought him back to the family, and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Just one of the things you talked about in your day after press conference to draft him, or maybe it was that night, you talked about him being drafted or selected on his merit of what he did on the field and what he brings to the table versus what his father did or what's in his DNA. Just talk a little bit about that with him in particular. And then with, you look at some of the other players like Cooper DeJean, Will Shipley is a guy that I guess has been projected as one of you guys' Red Star players or guys that you guys sort of certainly view very highly. When you get guys like this, the importance of adding these type of guys to your roster and to your locker room?
Well, first you talked about Trot, and I think we're going to call him Trot. I don't know if he likes that or not, but I think I'm so used to it that it's easy. But the success story, and we talked about it a little bit about how much we pay attention to positive or negative reviews we got for the draft. At the end of the day, all that matters is how these guys play and how many games we win. And so if we pick a guy who doesn't have any talent, it may be a great story for one day in the spring, but that's going to go down the wayside once we get to camp and certainly once we get to the season. And so we picked him because of how good a player he is. And you think about his DNA, which comes into play. Obviously genetics come into play for all of us, but he has a history of winning and winning at a high level and wherever he goes. And he's part of that because of the leadership he has on defense, because of the football instincts he has. Again, it goes back to instincts. He can see plays develop. Tremendous blitzer. He's good in coverage. He reminds me a little bit, and I don't want to put too much on him, of T.J. Edwards, where he's got an unbelievable feel for the ball. He's another guy who has vision for the ball. And so I think we got lucky, obviously, based on probably the process and the testing got pushed down a little bit. We certainly had him graded higher than that, and we picked him because of who he is and who he can be as a player. And I think that he deserves the right to create his own legacy and to put his own stamp on his career. And, certainly don't want him punished because his dad was a great player and expecting something different, because I do think their play styles a little bit different. And obviously both heck of players, and high character, leadership type. So I just think that for him to make sure that he gets the opportunity to put his own spin on it. I know Coach Reed used to say that to all of us, Ike, and I think it's a perfect line right here for Jeremiah, to him to be able to play his game, which is a little different than his dad. But really, really excited to get him. Another position that we felt excited to address here in the offseason, throughout the offseason. Obviously, for us, probably something we needed to address, just going back on how we ended the season, and feel like the guys we brought in, including him, are really good. And then the second thing you asked about was you asked about some of these guys, and I know we have a video out there showing some of these red stars. And when you lose, you can never replace Jason Kelsey, never replace Fletcher Cox, and those guys are captains. They've been captains for as long as I can remember. And when you lose great players and great people, you got to replace them with multiple great people and great players. And so for us, as we lose those guys, and eventually, obviously, PG, another captain, he'll go into his next area of his life, and hopefully Lane far down the line too. So you're talking about four guys that have been captains, have been leaders on this team, and that's important. Bringing in the guys with the right pedigree, the right work ethic, the right demeanor to respond to adversity, because the season is long. You're going to have adversity. You have the people who are going to kind of pick themselves up, and the more people you have like that, the greater chances you have of fighting through that adversity, coming out the other side stronger.
Yeah, if there was a player in the draft, I guess the consensus amongst fans, that we get calls about wanting to know more about, is Jalix Hunt. He obviously didn't play at a major program that people got a chance to watch him play, but I listening to you guys and you specifically talk about some of his intangibles, his measurables, and some of the things you guys were able to see at the Senior Bowl that excited you about him. What makes him a good pick at that in that third round with the 94th pick, and why did you guys feel like that's the guy you wanted right there?
Yeah, well, to stay on point here, what remains to be seen if he's a good pick, right? He's got to go out and perform at this point. They're all just picks and numbers until they go out and perform to their abilities. But what he does have is he has rare traits in his body. He's got length, he's got explosiveness, he's got twitch, and he's raw. Obviously for where he played from and the position switch. He played at Cornell. He was a safety. He was defensive back, and kind of hit a growth spurt here a little bit later. But when you see him moving around, when you see him bending, when you see his ability to close on the quarterback, and obviously you put that together with the frame that he has, the length that he has, he's a smart kid. These guys are hard to find. And we just felt like as we were watching him, and more we watched him, and more we saw him through the process and get better and better, we just felt like this guy has unique traits. We feel like we have the right people to get it out of him. And now, it's going to be on him. And certainly when you see him moving around in shorts like we saw him last weekend, it was a good first step. And we had buy-in from our coaches and our player development. I think I talked about this, so I'm sure you've heard this, but I'll say it again. Like, we understand when we draft guys, when we bring guys to Philly, that's just the start. These guys need to be developed. In any area that we're trying to do, when you're trying to have a job, you're not at your best in year one. You're still learning, you're still trying to get better. And so we feel like, these guys need to be developed, and we're excited to kind of get to work on that.
Talking to Howie Roseman, it's been a busy offseason, not just with the draft, but with free agency and re-signing your own guys, and looking at the money that you spent in the offseason on offense. The Saquon deal, then the AJ extension, the Devonta extension, the Dickerson extension, the Mailata extension. What would you say to somebody who sees that the money you have invested on offense compared to the money that you invested this offseason on defense, to someone who would say that it doesn't appear as if you think one is as important as the other?
Well, I'd say we view resources a little differently than how that was kind of framed. And we view money and big contracts the same as big picks. And as you look at where we put our draft picks in, we put a lot of high draft picks into our defense, and obviously warranted. We know that our best teams have been our most well-rounded teams. You don't want to have a weakness at any spot, any position on your football team. We're not looking to do that. I think sometimes, the timeliness of it is you're spending on one side of the ball and bringing in young players on the other side just because of the track of your team. But certainly, that's kind of how we view it, that we put a lot of resources into the defensive side of the ball, and we'll continue to do that. Just where we were and the talent that was coming up over the next couple of years, wanting to keep that core intact. We think it's really important that we keep those players who we think are tremendous players and tremendous people together for a long period of time. And we do have a bunch of picks here going forward to continue to add to that core of players and to continue to get younger. As we're kind of building kind of in parallel paths with a lot of guys that are on this team that we've drafted or re-signed here. And so, it made some sense for where we were to do it that way. Now it's got to work out, but at the end of the day, we certainly believe in defense. We certainly believe that for us to get where we want to go, we're going to have to play well on defense, and that not only entails, having good coaches, which we have, but having good players. We need to have good players on that side of the ball as well.
Yeah, I mentioned the AJ extension. Did you find it to be meaningful that Jalen went to the press conference when AJ took questions about the extension?
Well, what I see as meaningful is Jalen's leadership, and I think just like we talked about, he's constantly trying to get better in every aspect, on and off the field. I think that's like, tremendous leadership to want to do that. He wants to be supportive of his teammates. Obviously, that relationship goes back a long way. So when I see something like that, it's just consistent with how he is every day.
When you look at where we're at right now, Howie, you certainly have been busy and you've gotten a lot of work done already. I don't know if you heard the phrase that we love to use around here during this time of the year, which is Howie season. That means you're normally cooking in the kitchen and you're getting things sort of organized and trying to find ways to make this team better. So I would ask right now, is this sort of a downtime for you? Like, is what's next before? I guess the next big thing is training camp. I know we got some OTAs and things like that coming up. But what's sort of, I guess, next on your list of things you need to do to sort of improve in the team?
Yeah, every day wait for that waiver wire to come out, see if there's anyone on that wire that can help our team. Continue to keep in touch with agents of onside players, see if there's any opportunity there. Continue to communicate with the other GMs in the league and see if there's any fits. And, I think every day you wake up and you say, is there any way we can get better, today? And we'll continue to do that. Now, I'm not going to lie, we're going to take a little break from June to July and kind of decompress. But, I think I think getting that taste of what it's like to be the last team standing, and it's hard to be satisfied with any other ending. And I don't know if that's good for my mental health. It's probably the only time I'll ever use mental health on WIP in my life. But I feel like, it just drives you. It drives you to have that feeling again, and knowing how much it affects everyone. And certainly, I don't know that you'll ever get the bad taste out of your mouth about being so close in another one of those games. Probably could take 2 of those games, right, Ike?
Yeah.
But I think all you can do is just drive, to get back and do whatever you can so you have no regrets. I don't want to live with any regrets that there's something else we could have been doing at any time. So as long as I'm doing this, I'll do whatever I can every day that I wake up to try to improve the team. And the day that I can't do it anymore, I'm probably not the right guy for the job.
Howie, we appreciate your time. Before we let you go, I don't know if you've heard that we do on the show. We've decided to give out an award this year called Eagles Insider of the Year, and we do power rankings every week to who in Philadelphia is the best insider. And my question to you is, A, do you have a pick, and B, would you like a weekly vote in the power rankings?
No and no. How about that? And you know what? Bob Lang is in trouble because he didn't give me a heads up on this.
Oh, no, you're all good.
No, you handled it perfectly. You're aces, man. You can tell you've been doing this a while.
I appreciate you guys having me. Couldn't be more excited for the summer and then obviously the fall, but we got a long way to go before then, and it's fun seeing the guys back on the field, especially like a beautiful day like today. And we got a good group of players, we got a good group of coaches, and now we got to put in the work to make our city proud, and look forward to seeing you guys when we get back here for training camp.
Love it.
All
Thank
right,
you,
brother.
Howie.
Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
There he is, Howie Roseman. Your reaction next, 215-592-9494. I did not ask him the Twitter question of the day. Bob didn't warn him about that either. Brought to you by Mark's Jewelers. Mother's Day is Sunday. Shop the home team at Mark's Jewelers in Montgomeryville and Mount Laurel. Gifts for every budget online at marks-jewelers.com. Are the Eagles better on paper today than they were at the end of last season? 89% of the people say yes.
Let me just say, I'm happy you didn't ask him that question. Yeah.
I was just screwing around with Eagles Insider of the Year.
He would have said they're better, I would have imagined.
Well, he would say, I hope.
Yes.
We won't know till they're on the field. And So thank you, Howie.
No, we appreciate it, brother.
And we will talk to you next on the afternoon show on 94 WIP with Ike, Spike, and Fritz.